More comfortable to die in your home. I really hope not all the residents die.
A heartbreaking situation continues at a cottage country nursing home hit by COVID-19. There are increasing concerns now about the health of the remaining residents. Good evening, I'm Dwight Drummond. Welcome to viewers in Windsor and those here in Toronto and right across the GTA. A tragic story continues to unfold at a seniors' home tonight. 3 more people have died at the Crest nursing home in Bobcaygeon. In all, 12 seniors and 1 volunteer have died there due to complications related to COVID-19. Chris Glover now with the very latest.
As I'm speaking with people in this small town of Bobcaygeon, just a couple hours north of Toronto, there's certainly an uneasiness that people are expressing to me as they come to grips with the tragedy that is unfolding in this nursing care home behind me. Many people are learning that there have already been several deaths, and the medical director of this facility worries there still could be more. She says that roughly half of the residents remaining are showing symptoms, and some of them are in critical condition.
We are hoping to keep them more comfortable at Pinecrest where they're known, and the staff really do care for them. If they're going to die, it would be more comfortable to die in your home with people who at least know you, rather than to die in the chaos of a hospital.
The other very troubling thing here is that so many staff members are also sick. And as a result, the province and nursing organizations and associations have stepped up to find reinforcements to fill in here and take care of the sick and the dying. Now, of course, we're also seeing a lot of signs of thank yous from people in this community. There was a cavalcade of vehicles yesterday that drove right along this stretch of highway, honking horns with windows down, waving to the facility to say thank you to all those workers inside. Now, of course, we also spoke with the mayor who represents this small town, and Andy Leatham was saying that for him, this is a heartbreaking situation, but it's one that he hopes that the whole country is paying attention to.
There are some who aren't taking it seriously. If this can be a note that says, you know what, this is real. This isn't a hoax. Stay home, do what you're being told to do. And what these people are going through is very, very real. Their families are frontline workers here. And if this doesn't make it real for you, then nothing will.
And he says for the past few days, he's been walking around with, a knot in his stomach, just so concerned and waiting to hear more bad news, which he says, unfortunately, just keeps coming. Chris Glover, CBC News, Bobcaygeon, Ontario.
Ontario's public schools won't reopen until at least May 4th, but the province is promising that learning will continue online and teachers will still be issuing final grades and report cards. Lisa Shing now with the details.
For the last week, teacher librarian Amanda Williams-Yeagers has been hosting a virtual story time for the students who usually attend Viola Desmond Public School in Milton.
It almost makes me feel like I'm getting up and going to school. It's good for them, and I think it's good for our staff community too.
Every school day at 10 o'clock, Williams-Yeagers and other staff members read to the children on Google Hangouts and also engage them in activities.
It's so important for their kids to feel like they're still a part of their school.
Nothing is more important than the education of our children.
Now, new guidelines from the Ontario government to school boards to formalize online learning, since it's extending public school closures until at least the beginning of May.
And I think there's still a pathway to ensure children receive the material, learn it, digest it, and able to utilize it and build upon it for the foundations of learning for the next grade.
Kindergarten to grade 3 students will do 5 hours of work each week, focusing on literacy and math. Grades 4 to 6 will be the same, with expanded focuses on science and social studies. Grade 7 to 8 students will do 10 hours of work each week, while high schoolers will have 3 hours of work per course.
I need a break.
Some parents who are homeschooling their children are welcoming more structure.
If I can keep him just next to me, sort of unsupervised, and get a few things done by myself. Yes, please.
I'm excited to have some clear direction. It's just going to be a matter of the logistics. We have 3 different children, so so 3 different grades, 3 different streams. Yeah, it's going to sort of be interesting.
Some of those logistics are still being worked out. School boards could be delivering laptops and other devices to students. As to how regimented that work will be, that's also up to school boards. But the province says students' work will be graded and teachers will be giving out report cards. Lisa Shing, CBC News, Toronto.
We have an update tonight on how COVID-19 is affecting the Toronto Police Service. 4 officers and 1 civilian member of the service have tested positive.
Our officers are very anxious about what's going on right now, and we are doing everything to make sure that their safety, well-being, and that they are protected when they're out there doing their job.
McCormick says about 500 civilian and uniformed officers are self-isolating after returning from March break travel. He adds that's not a big concern at this time, but it is a situation the service is watching closely. McCormick added that police officers are receiving lots of support from Torontonians during the outbreak. Mayor John Tory announcing further cancellations today up until the end of June.
Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the City of Toronto is cancelling all city-led major events, festivals, conferences, and cultural programs, and is also cancelling all city permits for major events organized by external groups at civic centres, squares, parks, public spaces, including road closures, city-operated museums and cultural centres, and all of those permits will be cancelled through June 30th.
That includes events like the Toronto Marathon and various festivals around the city. Another big event that will be cancelled is Toronto's Pride Parade, but the city says Pride Month will still happen in June. In a statement, Pride Toronto says it is looking at bringing celebrations to Torontonians in a new and creative way in order to ensure safety and physical distancing. It is the end of the month and rent is due. It is the first rent day since the pandemic shut down our city, forcing many out of their jobs. While the provincial government is putting a stop to evictions, many renters are still worried. Kelda Ewan has more.
They're seen all over the city, posters calling on tenants to skip their rent, a movement of solidarity with the many who can't afford it right now. Patty Gallagher is feeling the struggle.
Like, it's literally a decision between whether or not I'm going to have food or if I'm going to pay rent and have a shelter over my head.
She lost her job after the restaurant she worked at closed.
I appreciate that our government is ordering us to stay at home, to protect each other for our health, but I feel like they're also throwing us to the wolves by taking away our income, yet not taking away our expenses.
I guess some people have savings accounts, but I don't.
Sam Belansky is a musician. Her gigs and upcoming tour canceled. She told her landlord she would only be able to pay half her rent on the 1st.
He then said that he's going to try and defer his mortgage payment. And then he said, I don't think that I'll be able to, though, so just let me know when you can pay the rest.
The big 6 banks in the country say most landlords will be able to get a mortgage deferral for 6 months. As for Sam, she's banking her hopes on the Canada Emergency Response Benefit, which would give her $2,000 a month for up to 4 months.
If that doesn't happen, I have no idea what I'm gonna do.
In Toronto, 47% of all residents are renters, and the average rent for a 1-bedroom apartment, about $2,200. The provincial government is urging landlords to be flexible and to work with their tenants, but isn't providing any direct financial help. Some landlords say they are feeling the pinch as well.
Families like ours that we depend on that income. Like, we decided to have me stay home with the kids and that's why we have rental properties.
Gallagher says she thinks the government should put a halt on all payments until things get back to normal.
Let's say you have $1,000 in your account and you have the ability to be able to pay your rent tomorrow, but that means leaves you $200 for groceries. Well, what about 2 weeks from then when you need money for groceries?
Over 700,000 people so far have signed a petition asking the government to cancel rent and mortgage payments. Kelda Yoon, CBC News, Toronto.
The city of Detroit now has more positive COVID-19 cases than the entire province of Ontario. Ford is switching from producing trucks to ventilators there. Frontline workers are preparing to treat people at field hospitals. Now, across the border in Windsor, where many of those Michigan healthcare workers actually live, there are concerns about them bringing the virus home to Canada with them. We're joined now by CBC Windsor host Chris Ensing with more on that. Chris.
Yeah, the big news this morning was that 65 cases of COVID-19 exist in Windsor, Essex, and a third of them are from Michigan healthcare workers, so people that live here but work across the border. Now, there's about 1,500 healthcare workers who fall in that bubble, and with the border restrictions, they are essential, so they're allowed to cross. Our medical officer of health is suggesting that people who work in Michigan stay in Michigan.
If people are going, let's say, 3 times a week or maybe every day to Michigan, can they just go maybe once and then stay there and then come back maybe the end of the weekend or something, just to limit that movement and as much as possible.
Now, another thing that he suggested as well was the idea of having healthcare workers fall into that mandatory quarantine. So when they come back, they have to self-isolate. Now, that's something when I've talked to nurses in the past that they're already doing. But this is something that's made its way up to the Deputy Prime Minister. Chrystia Freeland asked by CBC News today what she makes of what's happening here at the border. She says that the healthcare measures at hospitals, such as the temperature screenings, are good news and that things seem under control.
Opportunities have been offered to them if they would prefer not to go home to their families, to be able to stay in hotels close to where they are working. So a lot of very hard, very important work is being done on the ground in Windsor.
Now, another thing that we're seeing are the changes here at our hospital. Windsor Regional Hospital today telling us that there's about 70 people who cross the border from work, so from Detroit and into Windsor, Essex. The hospital has now asked them to pick one hospital, either in Detroit or in Windsor, and stick to it. Some have already temporarily moved here to Windsor to deal with the pandemic, but there's also more in his statement that he sent out today. He's sort of calling out our health unit on the way that they're reporting the numbers. I'll read you the quote here. He said, continuing to indicate daily the number of Windsorites who work in healthcare in Detroit and their positive COVID-19 results is not appropriate. Going on to say that healthcare workers are not immune to COVID-19. If the pandemic continues to escalate, healthcare workers will be just like the population in general, with percentages as high as 30%, if not more, getting COVID-19. Now, we also said that shutting down the border for healthcare workers would essentially cripple the care that people are offered in Detroit and Windsor, Essex. We have more on this story online at cbc.ca/Windsor. Thanks, Dwight.
Yeah, definitely a situation we need to keep our eye on. Thank you, Chris.
Let's face it, the statistics as far as people dying from COVID have been particularly stark where it comes to people in long-term care facilities.
So she pulled her mom out. After the break, the push to test every resident in facilities hit by COVID-19 and why that's not happening here in Ontario.
Canadian content, and it's time we take credit for it, starting now.
The federal government is working on supply lines intentionally and within Canada as concerns mount about equipment shortages and rationing of protective gear. Now, Prime Minister Trudeau says contracts have been signed with 3 Canadian companies to shift to production and delivery of essential goods.
Demand for these goods is going up, so we're making sure Canada is ready to keep up. That's why our government is allocating $2 billion to purchase protective personal equipment, including for bulk purchases with provinces and territories. There's no question that we will need more masks, ventilators, and testing kits. But how many more we need depends entirely on you. So keep doing your part and help us keep Canada safe.
More than 60 million specialized masks for healthcare workers are expected this week. More than 1 million test kits and over 1,500 ventilators are on order. Trudeau says more than 3,000 Canadian companies have offered to help. As we told you earlier, there are now at least 12 residents who have died at Pinecrest Nursing Home in Bobcaygeon. It is frightening news for anyone, especially for those whose loved ones live in seniors' residences and long-term care homes. As David Common shows us, it's causing some individuals to act and advocates to call for changes.
In ordinary times, PJ Kwong is a figure skating commentator, but right now she's looking after her 93-year-old mother-in-law after pulling her from a care home.
Let's face it, the statistics as far as people dying from COVID have been particularly stark where it comes to people in long-term care facilities.
Kwong loves the home staff, but when one became infected with COVID, she knew she had to act. Across Canada, at least 30 seniors' homes are facing cases, including outbreaks at Lynn Valley in North Vancouver and Landmark Village in Sarnia, Ontario, where 3 residents have now died. In the U.S., Johns Hopkins University says families could be encouraged to take residents home if they can manage them for an extended period, though the Centers for Disease Control warns infected seniors may well not show symptoms. Part of the reason this elder advocate wants every resident in an affected home to be tested, though she says that isn't happening in Ontario.
Once a home has an outbreak, they just presume that everyone in that home who starts showing any kind of symptoms has COVID-19, and they will treat it that way.
At others, the infected are isolated and visitors banned.
We're putting an iron ring of protection around our seniors.
But staff in Ontario have been working at multiple facilities. In the past, says this advocate, that's amplified outbreaks.
So then you have staff going back and forth, and that's who is going to be probably bringing it from home to home.
She matters more to us than anything I could possibly imagine.
Meanwhile, the rules are being changed in Ontario to allow those like Kwong's mother-in-law to be top priority to get back into their home when all this ends. David Common, CBC News, Toronto.
Tomorrow marks the first of the month and the first time people might be moving during this pandemic. As Talia Ritchie shows us, the process of moving looks a little different during COVID-19.
This place is gone. They're tearing it down.
It's not the ideal time to relocate, but accountant Laurie Berger says he doesn't have a choice. He agreed to be out by April 1st.
I called the COVID hotline, the Toronto COVID hotline, about 5 times with various questions, and I just made sure everything was done safely.
Safety is also top of mind for those doing the heavy lifting. At El Cheapo Movers, using fabric instead of plastic is just one of many new protocols in place.
The mask, the gloves, now we wear disposable gloves. We don't just wear our normal gloves. Sanitizing's changed a lot, so we basically sanitize the truck like nearly 6 times a day now, so after a move.
The owner of the company says this is normally a busy week as many people plan to move after the snow is gone. He says he is still getting requests for bookings, but the nature of the moves has changed.
We're finding that it's much more people who are compelled to move immediately.
And with moving services still able to operate in Ontario, the choice this company's making is to be as safe as possible.
I actually take the sanitizer and I spray down my boots before I get close to my house. And with the disposable gloves and the mask, I feel protected.
Talia Ricci, CBC News, Toronto.
Coming up next, the feel-good story of how one florist is doing what she can to brighten the days of others. Stay with us. We'll be right back. As we all deal with the COVID-19 pandemic, it's important to find joy where you can. With that in mind, a Mississauga florist decided to do something to brighten her community. Take a look.
My name is Julie. This is my flower shop, Forever Blooming. I've been here this year going to be 16 years. I love my community. They support me very well. So that's a way to kind of pay back. Brighten up the day. Everywhere's sad, right? Such a hard time. When I see the people take a walk a lot, so at least this flower can brighten someone's day. So I put it a little bit outside, and seems people enjoy it. So I bring more and more.
It's the best thing that they can do. Honestly, flowers are beautiful, especially this time of year when we don't have a lot of color in our life these days, just being at home. So it gives them something to look forward to when we take our walk.
Yeah, they ordering food. Their moms, friends, who they cannot go visit them. So instead of visiting them, they send the flowers to cheer them up. And they're both happy. Sending person happy, listening person happy. I'm happy too. Makes me think I'm doing very important jobs in here.
Putting smiles on people's faces. Yes, you are. We're continuing to introduce you to people on the front line of the COVID-19 pandemic through a series we are calling Frontline Heroes. Now, yesterday, a doctor we featured gave a call out to former Health Minister Jane Philpott, who's back in the field working in COVID-19 clinics. She responded saying his call out was really beautiful, adding, "We can all get through this together." She also paid it forward, giving a shout out to someone on her team making a difference. This is Dr. Jaya Nadaraja. She's the medical director of the infection control program at Markham Stouffville Hospital. In her email, Philpott wrote, she has the huge responsibility of ensuring that everyone is protected and safe during this pandemic. When she gives direction, Jaya is clear, knowledgeable, and kind. Her steady, reassuring demeanor helps everyone else remain calm, even with the stress of working in a hospital these days. Despite the pressures, Jaya goes about her work with a huge, beautiful smile, lighting up these dark times. Most impressive of all is that she does all of this while being a great mom for her 4 children under 10 years old. Thank you for everything you're doing, Dr. Nadaraja. If you'd like to share a story about your frontline hero, just send us a selfie-style video explaining why they're a hero to you. Email us at torontotips@cbc.ca, tag us on Twitter or Instagram at CBC Toronto, or send us a message on Facebook. And regular viewers Marlene and Tim Tibbs wanted us to thank all first responders, including their daughter, who is a paramedic. Marlene and Tim, send us a video, a Frontline Hero video, and we'll try to get it on the show for you. That is our show for tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. Power and Politics is coming up next. Stay safe, everybody. Physical distancing continues and might continue for a while, but as Dr. Philpott said, we are all in this together and we can get through it. Have a great night, everyone.